a great turnout for this meeting. I actually tricked you all. This is actually a budget meeting, so we're going to start getting So this meeting came about really from what happened right before Christmas. There was a very, very cold couple of days there, and we assumed that our faith community was going to be opening a shelter for those less fortunate that didn't have a place to go during the cold weather. I reached out to Rick and Bill and then Mr. Maloff and said, should we think about opening the armory? We were just kind of waiting to see if someone else was going to do something. I think Rocky Ford's church opened up a place. I was with Todd trying to see what our plan was if we had something like that. And we were actually fortunate enough with Brock's help to be able to open up the armory for those that didn't have a place to go. There wasn't a lot that showed up. That there's different ideas on why or why not that may not have happened. But I didn't really feel like we had a really good plan in place. I feel like we made it work with what we had in the short amount of time we had, but I didn't feel we were prepared. So I want us to really be prepared going forward, whether it's more cold weather, whether it's a fire of some sort, a big fire. I hope not, Brad. A tornado, a natural disaster of some sort, or as Councilman Velasquez just reminded me earlier too, the train derailment in Palestine, Ohio. If something like that were to happen, I'm sure Mr. Ritter has some type of plan in place for us or something like that. But I want us all to be on the same page. I want us all to look at different ideas and figure out how we can act decisively and make sure that we are helping and not hurting each other, that we know who to go to, who to contact, and really just, build that team right here tonight. So we have some people here from the county, we have people here from the city, you have your council members, and we have a special guest up here with me. You might be wondering, do we have a new council member? No, this is Mayor Susan Jung from Rocky Ford. With her being here, I thought it was only appropriate that I invite her up to the dais with us, and she may have some information on what Rocky Ford's doing, and we can gain knowledge from her as well too.
Thank you for the introduction.
With that being said, Rick, do you want to kind of go over what we do now, and then anyone else can jump in? And
well,
Mike,
we've really never done anything, until this last time, and we wouldn't have been able to do that really if we wouldn't have had the armory, and we lucked out because we were in between some of our programs that are out there, so it became available. We put that together. We didn't mind, Brock and I, and I know my first phone call was to Terry Smalling, and first thing out of the bat, Terry said yes. When I called, I knew he was going to say yes. And Val, I remember seeing you there at it, and thank you. And there's Mariella, Councilman Velasquez, and different people in the community that came and helped. And we took care of the 2 to 3 people. We had one guy last a little bit, and when he woke up, he was gone. But the married couple, I think they were married anyway. They really appreciated it. Now, I know some bad things happened after they left, and they went and burnt up a house, but, we helped them during that time. So, what I tell people, why would you have done that? And I said, I'd do it all over again because they needed the help. And now we know that they really were homeless because, they went over and burnt down the house. So,
and they really were cold.
And they were really cold, yes. So really, that's really been my only efforts, except for back in the 80s when I was with Otero County. And I know we used to meet up at the hospital on different scenarios. John Eberly, myself, and the police chief, and different ones throughout from the different communities.
And with that, with the thing at the armory, Todd, every hour and a half, we were sending someone by there to check on our volunteers. That was the big thing too. We had to have volunteers, and I know some of you that are in our faith community reached out and told me, Joe, we don't have the volunteers right now that we normally do to do these kind of things. It was the week before Christmas. We ended up staying open through Christmas Day, right, Brock?
Yeah, the Monday.
Yeah. Right after. So that was just a chance thing that we were able to do that. If we would have had some kind of basketball, football, something like that, what is it? Basketball, and what else do we run out of there? Volleyball. We probably wouldn't have been able to open that the way we did. So if anyone else has anything that they would like to discuss, now's the time. Please just come up to the mic so we can discuss this further. And I'll run.
Come on down.
Here, how about all the snow removal and all that? That's some, we might get another year like 2007 where we had, what was it?
41 inches on the flat.
41 inches, yeah. So that would be something that we might plan for. Not as high priority as taking care of people and their well-being, whether they be homeless or get caught in between that, but clearing of the roads would be something too. What was that, 41 inches back in 07?
2006,
6?
January 1st.
So that might be an item for discussion.
Here comes Mr. Davidson. He's volunteering his tribute. Turn the mic on, sir.
You betcha. Everybody hear me okay? All right, so I'm the fire chief and the emergency manager for the city. When an emergency happens, we can only plan so much, okay? Now, there's designated areas already around town designated through the Red Cross for shelters. Now, those could be difficult to open sometimes in a rush, but those are already designated. So some of those
How
things
many are there?
Danny, there's three.
Three here in London.
Three in La Junta, the senior center, the high school,
OJC.
and OJC, depending on how we could work with what they've got going on. Now, those are designated through Red Cross. So if in the event that something would happen, that those would need to be opened, Red Cross would help us get some volunteers down here to help, okay? Now, in Mr. Vila, your question about the snow removal, the resources around town are tight. There are designated routes that have to be opened up first for emergency services. So 10th Street, Adams, things that get to the hospital, those all become necessary. I was here in 2007 during that when we shut everything down. We also had 2 Amtrak trains full of people stuck in the yard. Bob Fowler remembers we went down there train by train, seat by seat, and checked on people, but we left them in place because we didn't have no place. We couldn't get them off the train. So we left them on the trains. They already had shelter, they had warmth and things like that. But the thing that we need to remember is we can plan ahead a little bit, but if these people don't want help, it's hard for us to prepare and open up places. And I'm not saying these people didn't want help, but that's a big question of how much help do they want? Are we going to be opening up these facilities that we're going to have to pay down the road, or what do we need to open? Is it just a small place in a church for 2 or 3 people? Or, we get a fire through here, or a blizzard, and we have to shut down Highway 50. Not only it becomes our problem, but then we work very close with our partners at the county and the other communities, and we activate the emergency plan of, okay, what do we need, how do we need it, and what does it take to get to that goal? So those are just some of the things I wanted to bring up from my point of view. A lot of times when these things happen, I can't stop what I'm doing because fires come first, public safety comes first, and then emergency management comes. But I rely on my partners through the county, a quick phone call to help out. City manager, assistant city manager, Mr. Jackson, they step up and they take care of us. So I'll answer any questions that way. But I hope that kind of clears a few things up, that we do have some designated places already around town. It's just, how do those get activated and when do they get activated?
So what would activate that?
Being any type of a shutdown of a major highway. Again, if we get a tornado warning or a tornado through here, where the Amtrak trains are stuck, because we had that as well, where we had eastbound and westbound trains here. People at the Amtrak told them get off the train and run to the city building. Little odd when you look down Colorado and you see a gob of people running in the middle of a rainstorm. Where do we put them? We put them in the hallway, in the basement, and the truck room. So we pulled the fire trucks out to put them in the building. We had no place else to put them. So after that is when they got with the Red Cross and started getting those. So it's been major events where we're going to expect or could expect a large group of people to get those opened up. Tornado warnings, we open up during tornado warnings sometimes for the high school and stuff. Where does everybody go? They go out in the middle of the street because they want to see the clouds rotating. They don't take cover. And that's hard for us sometimes because we're like, well, we opened it, nobody came. I don't want to be the doomdayer person up here, but sometimes we have to look outside the box of when do we open, when we don't open. The cold snap, we don't get that very often. I hope we don't get another one for a long time like that, so we don't have to open. But I don't want us to get into the practice or the worrisome of let's open it for every little thing. Some things have to play out sometimes before we make that big decision, because it is a big thing to unfold and expect things to be opened up and run. But let's make sure that we have a good idea. Communication is the key. Phone calls, things like that. Let's bounce ideas off of each other and go from there. Just my 2 cents.
No.
I wanted to volunteer that way I didn't have to come up again later on.
Well, since you're up here, I'm going to ask you one more thing. So, as I mentioned, and Mr. Velasquez brought up about, or I don't know how familiar you are with what's going on in Ohio.
I've been following it very close.
So, if I'm taking Mr. Klein correct, he says that we also have lots of freight with lots of different chemicals and things running through La Junta on a daily basis. I'm sure Rocky Ford as well too.
Anything that comes down the Highway 50 corridor, east and west, that comes into our yard, we probably don't want to know what all comes through there. But do we have the potential of that happening? Sure. Depending on circumstances, what the train is, we may have to evacuate a few blocks. We may have to evacuate the whole town. There's no way around it. What some of those decisions that were made to burn off some of those chemicals in the middle of that town, I believe, and I stand behind their decision, because if not, it would have caused bigger problems down the road. Now you have your other avenue of, what about this town? How are they going to rebuild? How are they going to get the infrastructure rebuilt? First responders, law enforcement, things like that. Those are things sometimes we have to think down the road. But at first is the public safety. I can guarantee you the biggest threat that we have right now, besides the train yard, is if we get a fire through North La Junta, where am I going to put all those people? How are they going to get out of North La Junta? I have a bridge right now that's getting worked on that's going to be down to 1 lane for a year. Where do I send them? Shara? And we've been trying to pre-plan. I know under Sheriff Wallace thinks about the same thing. Danny Chavez from the county emergency management. We did a pre-planning exercise the other day in my department of what do we do when we have a fire that comes through there? Where are we going to put those people? Can't send them all to the senior center because we're going to congest the bridge something first. A lot of these people are going to go on their own and do their own thing, call families and friends and do that, but we have to still plan for it. So that's a big threat.
What would you like to see from the community to help you out with this?
The community, they need to listen. Social media right now is a big key on how we get things out. Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Seco News, live feeds, huge for us. What they need to do is listen and not become looky-loos. And if they listen and follow our recommendations, maybe that'll help kind of streamline some things a little faster. The state can only get down here so fast to help us out when we do get a big incident. So, a lot of people out there are like, well, the state didn't come fast enough. The feds didn't come fast enough. There's a ton of paperwork that has to be done and requested. Am I wrong, Danny? We can't just go, hey, call the county and have them get the state down here. It doesn't happen overnight. They have to get requests. They have to be approved. And it's the politics and the bureaucracy that has to be done. But if the community would just listen and maybe take things a little more real, of not having the thought in their head of it's never going to happen here. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. We're not a big metro area. We're a small area. but things happen here in our community. And I want everybody safe. That's our main goal, is to make sure everybody's safe and we can help them any way we can. But work with us a little bit. Be prepared. Be prepared.
Do we have any, I know Colorado Springs just established their evacuation zones. Depending on what part of the city you live in determines the route or the location that you evacuate to.
Right.
Do we have any designated evacuation routes that if something did go down? And I know it's dependent on
It's
where.
kind of dependent, yeah, and really, I mean, we really don't. I mean, people kind of go wherever. I mean, we can try to streamline people, you know, down Colorado or down 10th Street, but we don't have anything in place. And maybe that's something we could look at, of maybe breaking the town up into different zones, you know, and things like that. Work on the emergency plan a little bit. But again, these plans, when we work on them, you know, we have to look at them. We got to get people's feedback, and then just trying to get people together to work on them, the different counties, and making sure everybody's on the same page. So
Yeah.
it in the movies, things happen so quick. They pick up a phone, boom, it happens. Real life, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
And
Plan
a
A
lot-
doesn't survive.
Right.
Brad,
And a lot
can I
of
touch
times.
on that a little bit?
What's that? Yeah. Good.
So with the, usually when we would put out a code red message or something like that, telling people to evacuate, we're gonna include in that message on where to go and the safest way to do so. So it's gonna
Does
come-
everybody know Danny, Danny Chavez?
He's the emergency manager for the county.
Yeah. So, you know, we don't have pre-scripted evacuation zones per se, but we are gonna give it at the time of the notification coming, because we don't know where the hazard's gonna be, or the fire, or the tornado, or whatever. So we have to do it on the fly. If
So-
that makes,
So let's say something happens, boom, right now. Who gets to send out that message? You call Danny, Danny calls you. How does that?
no, the dispatch will send it out.
Yeah, we'll make that decision of when it goes out, but dispatch send
Okay.
that out.
Or
And
the-
what information we need to put in there.
The sheriff's office can send it out as well, but, I mean, we're gonna coordinate, if it happens in Lahana, we're gonna go through Lahana dispatch to let them put out the information.
But I guess we could start pre-planning evacuation routes based on our most liable areas, the rail yard, Phillips Pipeline, their gas, North Lahana with the fire. That'd be an interesting deal for any fire chief to have that scenario going on right now. There's only three ways out of North Lahana.
Basically.
We have very limited options for evacuation routes, so.
It would be line of fire.
If something were to happen in North Lahana and Brad can't get people back across the bridge, we're gonna have to send them north and then circle back, or Shiraz established as a Red Cross shelter already, so we can house people there. Another thing I'd like to touch on is, as far as overnight shelters during a disaster, I feel very confident that we can handle most anything within the county. But warming shelters and stuff on a smaller scale like that, I would really like to revert back to churches, and, you know, if the armory was available, that was a great place, but I'd really like to revert that back to the churches.
Now, I guess on a grand scale, the ability to shut down cell towers only for earphones, we have that capability.
Yeah, through AT&T, FirstNet, it's called. First responders can sign up for that program, and we have priority over when they get so many calls coming in. Our number's already designated, and we get first priority, and then all we gotta do is pick up a call, and they can send out an extra repeater or tower, portable towers down here to assist with that.
Does that limit the public's access to Wi-Fi or cell phones?
Possibly.
Possibly.
It gives us precedent, so it's not gonna necessarily limit you unless the system becomes overrun. And then we get the precedence,
So
our
that-
call will drop your call if needed.
Okay, and I guess that's something the public needs to be aware of, that, your cell phone might not be working.
Right.
Because of that, if it's a major event.
And that doesn't matter, and that matters with whatever carrier you have, Verizon,
It hits
Arrow,
home,
whatever. It doesn't matter. When they start getting overran, that's just how it is. I mean, because so many people are trying to call. Even during the fire at Ben's Fort last year, FirstNet called me in the middle of the day that afternoon and said, do we need to bring you a tower? We see what's going on. So they monitor the area as well. And I told them, no, we were fine. But I mean, that's just the customer service that we get from them.
And that's another thing, we have lots of agreements with most of the major carriers. If we start getting overwhelmed, we can call them in and they're gonna bring in portable towers and help us out.
I have a question on trying to get a list of people so that you have a good network. Do you have some kind of listing that you update, like knowing the churches, knowing available people that might have a bit available buildings or places to put people?
We do and we don't. A lot of it's, hey, do you know this person? Hey, do you know that person? That's a nice thing with the size of our community. We're not a Colorado Springs or Pueblo where, you know, we have to look through a three-ring binder. Usually a few phone calls and word spreads pretty fast. We do know who we need to call right off the bat at some of the churches and things, or who we should call. A lot of times in the middle of an emergency, I can call Danny. Danny starts making phone calls for me. That's just how we work with the county and the city. We work very, very well, and our surrounding counties as well.
Communities, I bet.
Yeah.
That works out good.
Yeah, it works out really good.
Yeah,
Danny,
go ahead.
does the county have any designated places for, like La Junta's got 3, right, Brad?
In our area, yeah.
So does the county have any for each individual small city, or?
Yes, most of the cities, their schools have been working with Red Cross.
Oh,
to
okay.
Yeah.
Establish. And they are getting much stronger. They kind of, after with the COVID stuff, they've had to back off quite a bit, but they have been very present lately and getting that going. But yes, we do talk with most of the
Okay.
schools.
And we only have 3 in La Junta, is that correct?
Designated through Red Cross.
Right.
Yeah.
Think we need more?
Honestly, no, because it's upkeep and more responsibility for different things. These 3 that we have can house quite a few if needed.
And to be considered a designated shelter, you have to fall under a lot of criteria. That's probably all you have that meet that criteria with Red Cross.
Because it has to hold so many people, has to have certain type of utilities, have to have parking and things all like that. That's why those places were picked.
Let me just throw this scenario out there for you. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say a tornado runs through the high school. So now we're down to 2.
Down to 2 for that type of designation. I mean, we can always call other places and
Yeah, you're down to 2 within your city, but the other schools and the others in the area, even if we had to take you into another county, they're not discriminatory that you're out of Otero County or the City of La Junta, they're gonna take you.
And the other thing that we can take into consideration too is not only the people, but livestock, things like that. A few phone calls, and I mean, you'll be amazed of how fast the ranchers rally up trailers and stuff and start moving cattle or horses and dogs and whatever it may be out of the area if there is a disaster coming. It's pretty amazing to watch, and they do what they have to, and next thing you know, one of the ranchers may have 100 head of horses at his place because that's just the closest place they could go, and they treat them like their own. So it's pretty amazing that it's just not the public, it's also those resources as well. All right.
I don't know if you're done yet. You might come back up.
Hey, whatever.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. Speaking of livestock and stuff, I spent 30 years working with EOC in Pueblo County. We just recently moved down here. And one of the things that we're taught through our FEMA training and just through the experience over the last 30 years is that people have a tendency not to want to shelter if they can't bring their pets in with them. So are these cohabitated shelters that are set up, and is there anything set up for people with their pets currently in this county? Because pets are different.
Pets are different than livestock,
I've worked
yes.
with the livestock people for 30 years, and they are fabulous. But pets are a little bit different in that, you know, you can't just throw like 60 dogs in somebody's backyard and
Yeah.
say, good luck, guys.
If we had to activate those Red Cross shelters, we would let them know about pets as well, and they have resources that they can bring down if we have to do an extended stay at those, and they would be able to help house those. We're not going to say that, I'm not going to stand up here and say that they won't allow pets in for temporary, but we also have to think about the buildings and maybe is there something else that we can use to put the pets, but I do understand
And that's the
what you're
reason
saying.
I'm here, actually, because I also co-own the dog training center in Swink.
Good, great.
So I would love to meet with you guys and talk about helping with the sheltering of pets.
Mr. Ritter.
Danny, doesn't USC Extension do something with animals and pets? I know they do something with livestock and large animals, but I think they've also looked at pets.
They're primarily focused on livestock and large animals. However, there are many, many programs that have come through recently to handle pets.
Now, when we
They're going to come with a huge supply of kennels and food and everything your pet needs. Now, can you cohabitate in a shelter? Probably not with your pet in most of these shelters down here. But there are people coming who are going to take care of your pet.
But what I'm saying is you don't have to have people coming because we're here.
Right.
We're already
right.
FEMA certified to do that.
Right.
So please utilize us.
But do
in
you
any way
you
you
have
need for
hundreds
that.
of kennels and portable, everything you need?
What would
to
be
take
your
care of?
maximum capacity to take on in the event of something happening like that? Just ballpark, you don't have to.
I'm gonna ballpark in probably, we could probably get 100 at the training center.
Okay.
And have the staff there to take care of it.
And that's good to know. That's good to
That is
know.
good to know.
Thank you.
And
So-
you may speak with Bruce Fickensure. I'll get with you maybe after this meeting. I'll give
Sure.
you some contact info.
Yeah,
He would be glad to have you.
yeah, because we have an MOE with Pueblo, and we set up the Pueblo trailer for their cart team up there, so we can get that down if we ever
Good.
need it.
Carrie?
Has Red Cross ever been through something like that here?
Oh, yeah,
And what their process is?
when we had the
99
flood
flood.
in
99.
99 when we had the flood, we had Red Cross down here, we had FEMA down here, we had everybody down here.
They're pretty rapid.
Yeah, very confident in them. And they've grown a lot since 99.
And they need volunteers as well from all these towns. So a
Yes,
lot.
they do.
There's very little Red Cross volunteerism down here.
If someone were interested in doing that, Danny, what would they need to do?
Contact the Red Cross. You get on their website and there's a sign up.
Where's the nearest Red Cross
Pueblo.
center? Pueblo? Oh.
Like I said, I won't say you're all the way done, but for right now, you're done.
Good job. Thanks.
And Rick, did that answer your question?
Yeah, and were you there when we walked through the high school? I think you were, weren't you?
Yes.
We considered pets when we walked through that with the Red Cross representative, right?
We consider it.
And did they say no-go?
I'm not saying it's a no-go. It's gonna be, it hasn't been fully approved, so I really
Okay.
don't want to comment on that. I would not expect it.
But it's nice that we just have you guys come in and make that
Yeah, the Red
contact.
Cross in Pueblo will not cohabitate
Right.
at a Pueblo evacuation for any reason. So,
Mr. Quick, Chief Quick, if you'd please come up front. I'm sure you and maybe possibly Under Sheriff Wallace would have a good answer for everybody that's watching online and those in the audience. You know, it would be remiss if we didn't talk about the dangers of a school shooting. You know, it's something that's become all too common. I want to make sure that you guys, I know that you guys are, but what can we all do here better to help out in the event that something like that happens?
Real quick, we have a pretty good plan set up. We have exercised it in the past. COVID's kind of stopped it. Paul's a member of it. What it is we have stuff set up ahead of time. 'Cause when one of those events happen here, we don't want to have to be, whether it's in the county, here in La Junta, trying to get people together. So we have a group of about 40 people that meet usually once a month. We're going to be back meeting again in September, since I send out the stuff on that. And we plan and drill, work with the schools on reunification. We have things set up where if an active threat happens, and here in La Junta and any of the other towns could use this model too, we have code red system set up. The call goes out to these 40 people, active threat at this location, respond to your area. Things happen, the posse helps us here in town. They go to wherever our reunification area is going to be, they secure it, and then clear it, make sure there's nothing wrong, and then get set up to start receiving, whether it be people from anywhere. Our city streets here in town, the group, they set up pre-routes they know from different places, and they get those cleared for us. So city employees come out. Rick's been great, and Bill with helping us get people in there. Have MOUs with other agencies, CBI, Pueblo, a lot of them coming, and most of the areas around. Otero's part of our plan. The on-duty Otero guys, the on-duty La Junta guys, and on-duty State Patrol guys will respond immediately to that scene. You see it a lot of these kind of incidents that they get overrun with law enforcement, it becomes a lot of chaos. With ours, there's a staging area where all other law enforcement, except for the 3 groups I've told you, will respond to that staging area. Paul's one of the people there to help start getting them checked in and sending them out to wherever needed, whether it be help at where it's happened, whether it's help at the staging area, just reunification.
It's almost a lot like with Chief Davidson when they have a fire and you have someone come in to help your other calls while you guys are able to
Yes.
collect them.
Yeah. So, and we were drilling it pretty hard before the COVID. COVID kind of stopped us, but we have plans of working with the schools to start drilling it again. And then starting next month with a meeting and some training on victims, stuff they can come in and do and help us.
So is that just limited to Otero County? Are you guys going to Bent if that happens, or Crowley? What does that look like for you guys?
I'm sorry, Bent comes in and helps us as well as Crowley. So if we asked, we'll go there. Like I said, this is a model that can be used anywhere. You just gotta. Main thing is get the players all together, have a plan, and how you're going to notify everybody to get it enacted and moving in place.
I'd just like to make a recommendation, however. I had a 16-year-old granddaughter that went through one of the school shootings in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And the chaos as far as the media goes, there should be, if it ever happened down here in Otero County, my recommendation would be is that one person is appointed to make comments to the media and
Yes, ma'am.
nobody else.
Yes, ma'am.
Because those kids at 16 were going on live TV to correct what went on at that school shooting.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100%. And our answer there is Mr. Adrian Hart right there. So he is going, because of his experience in the press and Bill, he will be in charge of our media staging area. So he'll set up an area. He'll keep the press and everybody where they need to be. And then only messages that have approved will be going out and with the help of Mr. Hart.
Through that media staging area,
Yep.
where we'll be able to do approved interviews and whatnot,
Very good.
so that way we
Because
can
it
have
was a
order.
disaster in Denver.
I'm sure. I'm sure. It's nice that we don't have so many media outlets out down here.
They'll be here.
I mean, it's not, but, oh, I understand.
See, luckily, we haven't had it out here yet, but like Fire Chief said, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah,
But
right.
we get to see some of the others around and learn from them. A big one was the Aurora Theater shooting. The fire department, those guys, they're good at responding to places. They know how to set up. Cops are terrible. They all run, want to get there and help, and they blocked routes from people coming in, blocked routes going out, just because they were there trying to help. So that's why we have our plan of which departments will respond to the incident, and then which ones will go to the staging area. That way we don't slow down the operation.
I know we do stuff for our schools, Do we include Otero College in it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I am sorry if I forgot Mr. Addington there. They're a very integral part, and we're also helping them with security measures at their college. There's so many people involved in this, like I said, over 40 people, so if I missed anybody, I apologize.
And I see Andy Flimmer out there, and we always know the hospital's on board.
They're always ready. Well, the
Yes.
hospital's going to be the second place to be inundated with
Right.
with people.
And I have Nan with the emergency room, so she's in on the training. And, she's one of the group, and she brings nurses and people like that with her to the meetings.
And I've had the misfortune and the pleasure of working with Chief Quick under Sheriff Wallace and Chief Brad Davidson, and watched them do incident command. And they're proficient, they're professionals at it, and well versed. And unfortunately, they get to practice it on a smaller scale every time there's a larger crash. That's incident command. If they're landing a helicopter on the highway, that's incident command. Nothing happens by accident. And I have full faith in these guys, and the chief and all the partners in here that work with active shooter or mass casualty event, wherever it would be. We've been doing it since at least 2007, as far back as
Yes.
having a major operation. And like I said, I hope it never happens, and we will get through the initial chaos and get through it when it does, unfortunately.
Under Sheriff Wallace, do you have anything you want to add?
You've covered pretty well, sir.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions of Chief Quick? No?
Oh, I forgot to point out Mr. Ritter back there. I got to participate in the pandemic drill. I don't know, was that 10, 12 years ago? And that,
Yeah, then the real thing.
I think we all got to participate in the pandemic. But thank you to Rick for everything you've done during the pandemic. I know we appreciate you greatly here in La Junta. I hope Otero County as well too. Everything you did for us during those times was very much appreciated, and I want to thank you personally for that.
And Mayor, it was a team effort. Everybody involved.
Please state your name,
Yeah,
sir.
my name is Matt Witt. I'm the pastor of Calvary Church here in La Junta. And I just want to express a few things. The first is actually just a thankfulness to the mayor for your work in getting that shelter together. But not just that, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the above and beyond of traveling the streets, looking for people to bring in, and making that happen. That's just awesome. And so I want to thank you for that. It shows a heart for this community and for the people, even those who may just be passing through. As we know, lots of times in our community, we've got a lot of folks who are often passing through who are homeless. Those who are often in need are not necessarily here. They are going through, whether it's just through the highway or out of Fort Lyon in some way, or they're just not sure where they're going yet. I did want to express kind of the heart of, I know some of our pastors as well as a lot of other faith community in terms of the cold. Because I know, and I point out, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe this is 3 years in a row that we've had where we have hit temperatures to -20 for a sustained 2 or 3 days. And I can go back to text messages that I have with my team at church saying, hey, the temperature's getting really cold. What are we can we do anything? Do we want to do anything? And every single time, by the time we agree and the people talk and decisions made, it's like, well, we're not really sure what to do. And there's always been the question about whether or not there's a need. How many people are going to come to a warming shelter? I know, and so we were really thankful when that rolled through this year. And I kind of said to our team, hey, let's observe that. Let's see how many people come, and we can then think even more about how we might respond in the future. One of the challenges that we have, and we were willing to open, I think a lot of the churches, I talked to a lot of pastors in the couple days before all of that started, is everybody said, well, we're willing to use our building, but we don't have the people to man this for a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. A lot of our churches are smaller. We don't have a lot of large churches with large, forces of people. But what we do have is people who work really hard and spending the night working, volunteering all night, and then going to work, or we have retirees who aren't in a place where they can do that. We end up talking, and this happens every year whenever these things come up, we end up talking about the lack of people. We have lots of space, but we don't have the people, and some of that, I think there just needs to be a coordination on these smaller things. I mean, the big Red Cross things and the big, huge emergencies, those are things that get handled by people who are handling these things, and you guys are training to do these things, and we thank you for that. And I do think the place for a lot of these, the smaller things is, like you said, actually in the faith community. But we need help resourcing those things and coming together and bringing those things together. I'll say a couple of the hindrances that always get thrown out, whether this is folks in our own church and even from my own mouth or people from others, is safety. You know, what do we do when you've got somebody who comes in and they're drunk, they're stoned, they're high, they get violent, and now I've got, a couple senior volunteers who are really nice, sweet people, but they can't do anything for their own protection. Safety always comes up. Things like, we're not a shelter. What's our insurance going to say? There's a million excuses not to do something, and there's every reason, and every one of these people is a reason to do something. And so the faith community, and I would sort of boldly speak on behalf of many of us, because I've talked to many of us, is we want to do something. We want to figure out what that looks like, especially in those moments, those 2, 3, 4 days before these, the cold snaps, the blizzard, these things that affect people but don't affect a Red Cross level of people. We want to be there to help and do what we can, and would love to be a part of a solution moving forward as we consider what that looks like. I think in partnership with each other, but also in partnership with the greater community, that we would love to have the opportunity to work and to do that and to set those things up in advance so that we're ready for them when they actually come.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. That's a lot that you threw out there. Hold on real quick. So I appreciate that. Like I said, I do want the faith community to take that over. I don't want us to depend on the Armory. I think that's great if we can do it and we're able to, but I don't want us to depend on that. Now, when it comes to safety, if we get that ahead of time and we can coordinate that with Chief Quick, we can do kind of the same thing we set up with the Armory, right? We could send someone around every so often to make sure that your volunteers are safe and make sure that they have a line of communication to get down that way if someone's unruly.
We're only a phone call away.
As far as the insurance, I don't know how that plays out. Hopefully I don't see Randall here, otherwise we could have picked on him to see what that looked like. So there's that part of it as well too. Brock, was it only 3 total, or did we have...
There was a couple more that came in to eat.
But didn't stay, huh?
Didn't stay.
Okay. And then that's my last piece of it before I let you go, Mr. Vila. When we talk about people needing shelter, a lot of people say homeless, some transients, different names. But there's also people that are without a home, but they're living out of their cars. And stuff like that, and we're trying to get them to go to those shelters too, because you wouldn't want to be in your vehicle having to start it and or leaving it on, God forbid. I think Terry's group is doing a great job at reaching out to them, and I think there's more. I don't know how big your homeless transient population is in Rocky Ford, but to have only maybe 4 or 5 tops utilize it this last one, and the weather was extremely cold, and I don't see it getting any warmer in the coming winters coming up. I don't know what that looks like for you. I wouldn't prepare for a whole bunch, and then Terry and them brought a ton of food. We had so many people bringing food and all this stuff, and we have 2 people in there, just
Yeah, one of the challenges that we often face in just the day and age that we live in, as we run our numbers, 3 volunteers actually isn't usually enough Our denominational requirements, our insurance requirements. If I'm in the building, I'm not allowed to be in the building with just a young woman, right? Or even with another woman who's not my wife. And that's one of our denominational considerations for the protection of women, not to mention my own reputation. And so you start thinking through, unless you've got a married couple who's there volunteering together, you've got all these considerations and how to keep your volunteers safe across many instances. You know, you look at some of the stats for when abuse takes place. It's often in crisis situations, right? And kids go under the cracks. There's a lot of situations, and so I think we are really invested as a faith community, as the churches of this community, in helping and doing what we can. And we don't want to throw the walls up on that. We want to figure out ways over the walls. We believe we have a God who tears down walls. And so we want to help, we want to serve in whatever way that we can. And I will speak for my church in particular in this, but I think for really maybe all of them, we are willing to do just about anything we can do that we can do. And we're willing to step up and take care of what needs to. Most of us need some time to figure out how to plan that and make that happen going into it. And so having a really good plan for the small things, I think, would be a really good move forward. And I would just suggest bringing together, in particular, the pastors or whoever it is, the leadership of some of the various churches alongside the community for a focused meeting to say, here's what we need, here's the problem, let's figure out how to solve this together. I know a lot of us would be really willing to have that conversation. So,
hey Danny, real quick, sorry. Was it you that lent us the cots? Is that available to anybody, or how does that work out?
The cots actually belong to Crowley County. They're bought through some grant funds that we had, but yes, we have a lot available, and I believe the ones that we got you that time we have put on permanent loan to Brad, so they're still available and he still has them.
Okay. I just didn't know if we needed to put in ahead of time or what that looks like. And
No, those guys, they wanted us to make sure that we were staged up, ready to go next time. So really appreciate that, Danny.
Sorry, Lisa and Ed. Go ahead now.
Whatever happened to the La Junta Ministerial Association? Is that still active?
It is. We're actually going to be meeting this next Tuesday. I think will be our next meeting. I was the president of the ministerial basically all the way through COVID, and Daniel Blackwell's the current, and Swink is the current kind of president of that. We meet, there's a great fellowship, a great camaraderie, and we are really enjoying working together as the church pastors, a lot of the pastors who are willing to come.
For the cold spell, did you guys have any activity going on, or where you could put people?
There was a lot of messages that went along. They were seeking into that. And then when the armory got set up, I think most of those conversations turned into, hey, the town's doing this. Let's get some people from our churches to go. And I know some from ours were there. I don't know about others out of that conversation.
How about the inverse of that? If the faith community would identify one church or one location and then collaborate and come up with a list of volunteers from that, and if that would be insufficient, to then reach out to the public. Because I'll use if you're broken down in your car and you're just sitting there, people are just going to pass you by. But if you get out and start pushing, it's a natural human tendency for people to assist you doing that. Mm-hmm. So we have an identified space and a startup group of volunteers. Maybe the public would say, well, I can step up and do that. And we go from 3 to 9 to maybe 12.
Yeah.
So
and I think that would absolutely be a goal. To establish what that'll look like and where that is, and how to do that well. We want to work in conjunction with the resources that are out there. One of the other big questions we always end up having as just our church when we have this discussion every year, it comes up, is, well, how do you tell people we're there? Somebody always says Facebook, and then somebody always says, well, a lot of these people aren't on Facebook. And you end up having to do what our mayor did, and I'm just going to go drive around town for hours looking for people to invite in. And so, if we're going to do it, then we need a way, whether it's communicating with the police department, whether it's to get that word out, so that we do end up having the people who need to come can come. I think that's probably one of the bigger barriers that I would see us having. I mean, we have the space, we have the people with everybody, especially if the community joins in with us. But then the word has to get out. I think the strength of the Armory was that it was a town endeavor, and so the police were involved, and our mayor was involved, and you guys were all involved, and I saw hundreds of posts on Facebook, so that was covered. It's getting that word out, and it's working together to make that happen. Because we're talking about particularly people who are not well connected to each other, especially when it's that cold. They're not congregating, someplace they need to be here. So I think, like I said, I think coming together and really coming up with a strategic plan that can work our faith community, our churches together with whatever partnerships we can have with the town. I think there could be a really good solution moving forward.
How many churches do we have in La Junta?
45? No.
22.
I think it's
22.
Is it 22?
Just be 23, but
okay.
Yeah, we ain't there no more.
Well, I'd encourage you to get with Chief Quick and attend the mass casualty event planning, because I think churches will fall into that too. People will need somewhere to go, and I see the faith-based community being a large part of the aftermath of that. So that does two things. It prepares us continually for that aspect of a horrible event, but it also gives you an into the communication to the police department and the fire department, and probably Otero County Emergency Management.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We covered a lot already. We covered fire, we covered cold, we covered tornadoes, natural disasters, and as Paul mentioned about, Rick, we've all been through that whole pandemic type of event too. Mr. Vila, Councilman Vila just mentioned, do we have any type of mental health set up in the event after a big event like that happens? And I don't know if anyone's here that can maybe answer that, speak to that. Todd, do you want to be our mental health?
I can just tell you that's part of our group that comes into the relocation area.
Was it through Southeast?
Yes.
Okay. And hopefully that doesn't change with them being bought out by...
It actually should
It will
strengthen.
not change. I'm with Valleywide, and it wasn't actually a buyout, it was a merger.
Okay.
So everything that they were doing, they're continuing to do.
Continuing going forward. Mr. Flummer, do you have anything you want to add on the hospital's end?
Sure. Quick.
You never sit in the middle, Andy.
No, but that's Leroy Fierro to join me. I don't know.
Andy, welcome back.
Thank you.
Been a long time since we've talked.
So I don't know how many people know Leroy Fierro. Leroy's our Director of Emergency Environment and Management, Environment and Care. So he has responsibility for all of our emergency preparedness, all of our drilling, making sure we're supplied. We do have an incident command structure that gets set up when a disaster is declared. And I've been through that. I'm certified through FEMA myself to be an incident commander, and recently renewed my credentials. Leroy is certified as well.
Correct.
So the hospital's also been stockpiling supplies, especially since the COVID pandemic happened and what we learned from that. So we have a significant amount of masks and gowns and what you need, should we ever have to go through another pandemic or something similar. So the hospital is well stocked, and so that is in place as well. Leroy, did you want to add anything else about?
Now, all the plans that everybody was talking about, trying to implement with the city or with the different organizations. We do the same thing in the hospital. So we have many different plans already in place to take care of the hospital. So we have to be able to take care of the hospital for 96 hours minimum. So a lot of the plans that you guys are talking about for housing people, we have to house our staff, our patients, or visitors that we have in place. So a lot of those things, if anybody needs help or would like to talk, then more than welcome to come down and see me.
And we had our annual drill set up for about 2 weeks ago, and the Wednesday cycle snowstorm happened, which is what it seemed to has become. So that's been rescheduled. And that's being supported by Colorado Hospital Association, and their emergency preparedness director will be coming down and leading that drill for our incident command. So March 31st, we'll be simulating a mass casualty drill and how the incident command works, and just sharpen our skills, because I serve as the incident commander, and Heidi Gerhardt, our CNO, is in charge of logistics. Leroy has a role in that. Safety, and just kind of helping to coordinate everything we're doing. So it's a lot of communication and preparedness, and we have every hospital in the country has this in place. It's part of our accreditation requirements as well.
Thank you for all that, Andy.
All right, thank you.
And Leroy, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for
Thanks.
Anything else, Rick?
Anybody else would like to get up and speak, or about Valleywide? Do you guys got anything other than, we probably do the same thing?
We have a lot of the resources. We don't have like an incident command like a lot of you guys, but we have a ton of resources that we'd be ready to throw at it. I'm also involved with one of the churches in the area that would be working with Matt. So yeah, we got a lot of resources, a lot of willingness to help if it was needed.
Well, you know what? When Joe called this meeting, I thought, okay, we'll get about 10 people show up, and we got over 30 people here. You know, I'm real proud. Thank you guys for everybody showing up.
Mr. Fowler, do you need anything? No. By the time they get to you, it's too late, huh?
Right.
He's on a couple.
Mayor John, do you have anything else you'd
I
like
don't
to?
have anything else to comment on.
All right. Well, I'll thank you all for coming out. Special thanks to Chief Quick, Chief Davidson, Rick Ritter, Andy Flemmer, Brock, Matt, Danny Chavez, Wallace, Under Sheriff Wallace. You guys are awesome. Thank you for coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you.
And thank you all for volunteering and taking care of the people of this community, because every one of you I see out there, I've seen at different places taking care of this community. And guess what? Still up to us to take care of it. So together we're better.
For the City of La Junta and the people of Southeast Colorado, I'm Adrian Hart with your Southeast Colorado News.